Hello everyone, thank you for visiting our Facebook page. Today we have a great visitor. His name is Rogelio Sanchez, the CEO and president of ASI, and it's actually a counseling and professional service company, right? Or agency, I should say.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your agency, please.
The agency was developed about 20 years ago, and it was developed by a group of us, and that we decided that we wanted to provide counseling services to people. At the time that we did, we didn't know what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. But the agency was developed, and we didn't have no concept of where, how we were going to start and all that. But we began with the domestic violence program.
Right.
But the agency itself, the SC, came out from my parents giving me directions when I was a kid. And they used to tell me in Spanish, do it like this. In Spanish they would say así, hazlo así. And so everything I did when I was a kid, they would teach me how to do things, how to not only work in the fields, but also make sure that I clean dishes and mop the floors and sweep the floors and all this. But even clean the yard, they would say hazlo así, like this.
Yeah.
And so that's how we developed the SC.
The acronym.
The acronym SC.
Yeah. And so tell me about the 4 elements. There's a concept that you developed after many years in your profession, and you feel that this is a concept that can be applied to just basically daily life, I believe, right?
Yes. The SC way, as I call it, it's called the 4 elements. Part of it is the 4 elements, but the 4 elements has a lot to do with how we can use a process of thinking to do anything that comes in front of us. Whatever happens to us, we'll think about it as a situation, which is the first element.
Right.
And from there, we think it's the first element because we don't want to talk about problems anymore. We don't want to talk about how the problem gets worse and how it gets to a point to where we don't want to deal with the problem. So if you think about it in the concept of a situation, it's a lot softer to think about. It's easier to look at a situation than when you think about a problem.
Right.
So,
and it's considered actually easier to solve a situation than a problem.
Right.
That's a great concept. Actually, that's a great idea. I can't believe it. And what's the second one?
The second one is from the feeling part of the situation. What is it that you're feeling with this situation that you're in? And we go through a series of questions, and those questions have to do with all the concepts actually. We have 5 questions that we talk about, and when people come to class, we talk about these 5 questions and how we can ask these questions, and but the feeling part of it is so intense because no one wants to talk about feelings.
Right.
And so that's why we have the second element as the affect,
right,
or the sentiments.
Actually, it's kind of interesting that you brought up the word feelings, because that happens to be what most people consider the negative part of our culture, is that men, especially men, don't necessarily talk about their feelings or express their feelings. So that must be a very challenging part for that particular type of client, right?
It's very challenging not only for the client, but also for the therapist or the counselor, because the counselor is not used to really dealing with the feeling part of it. A lot of them, and that's the training we give, right, to counselors, is to how to work with feelings,
right,
with themselves first, and then with the clients
before they can actually address the clients.
Exactly.
What's the third element?
The third element is the consequence. In every situation, you're going to have a consequence. No matter what you do and how you do it, there's always a consequence to anything and everything.
And then our 4th element?
The 4th element is the final, which is, we talk about it as a final, but it's never final, because change is the 4th element. Change is always happening every moment. Every time you even deal with a situation, you're thinking, what is the feeling? So once you think about feelings, there's change already starting, because when you start dealing with the actual situation in any form, then change becomes part of the process.
Right. And when did you decide that these 4 elements were critical to this entire process? Was it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or just came to you in a dream 4 years ago? How did it get?
Actually, it did come to me in a dream, because it was like right during Christmas time, and I had just finished the book, and I thought, there's something missing. There's a concept, there's a framework, there's a model that's in here, but I can't find it.
Right.
And I had finished the book, but I didn't publish it yet.
Right.
So finally, when I dreamed about it, I woke up thinking, wow, this is it. And so that was the time when I developed that was back in 2006.
Right. And as you mentioned off air, this is actually the foundation for this entire process, correct?
Yes.
Before we kind of continue, tell us a little bit about your education.
Well, my education stems from going to college back in the 70s, and didn't know which way I was going to go. I thought law school was the way,
Yeah.
so I went to a year in law school, and it didn't pan out, because I thought, wow, this isn't where I want to be.
Right.
So finally, I went once I finished my BA, I decided to take a couple of years off and to work, and got into the master's program. And in '79, that's when I graduated from Fresno State University.
Which is probably the best university you can attend to in the Central Valley, obviously. Tell us a little bit about the book that we see behind us, which you put a lot of work into, and it actually says Domestic Violence Intervention, and it's a 52-week manual or course session.
Yes.
And the reason I want to talk about that is so we can sort of segue into our topic of immigration. But tell us a little bit about this book and how you developed it.
Well, the book was developed after all these years of working with clients, and after realizing that other people need to know this concept, I decided to publish it. I said, you know what, the training that needs to go out to counselors, because they're being led blind, I think,
Right.
and to talk to clients in a certain way. And I thought, no, this is westernized kind of methods that don't seem to help our people.
Right.
And so I decided that, if I can teach a better way or a new method that people can cling to,
Right.
and be able to understand it even easier and a simple approach, I think I should publish it. And I decided to go ahead and
it's a great book. I actually started to read it, but can you give me a couple of small examples of what you cover in the book?
Yeah, there's titles or topics of discussion which are based in a 52-week program. One of them is called Respect, and respect is one of them that we thought people need to learn about it, because even though it's talked about a lot, people don't understand it.
Right.
And so we want people to come, as clients, when they come in here, to know what respect is. And from that moment, they're able to start thinking about what is respect, and for themselves first, and then for other people. How to respect themselves is one, but how to respect other people is probably harder for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the very first day you and I met, my instant reaction was, wow, our culture really needs to hear this topic, because it's not a very comfortable subject for our culture. We know that domestic violence actually exists, mental health issues exist, drug abuse exists, and some of them do seek help, but obviously it's a wider issue than we a lot of times consider it. What do you have a message for someone that maybe deals with this issue right now, and is kind of looking to seek that assistance? What's that first step?
I think the first step would be for a person who's struggling out there, who's trying to think, what am I doing wrong? Why is my relationship going bad? Or why do my kids not talk to me? Well, the first thing is to look at themselves and to see how they respect themselves.
Right.
And so once they acknowledge that, then they're able to move forward with looking at how to respect other people.
Right.
Because they can't do it without looking at themselves first.
Right. Do you have a phone number they can call in case they want to speak to you, or really just kind of want to connect with you about the topics that we've talked about so far?
I think the number is 559 499-1011.
Yeah, and the number's going to be on your screen pretty much the entire interview, so hopefully you'll be able to make that phone call and try to seek the assistance that you're looking for. What are the topics that you touch? I know we talked a little bit about domestic violence, but what else do you assist with?
We work with people who are who have substance abuse problems, who have marriage, family problems, anger management problems, parenting problems, and domestic violence.
Right.
So those areas are very crucial in daily life. So, and lots of people have them in this valley.
Yeah, you know what, actually I'm glad you said that, because this is one of the topics that is evident that everything is connected. You know, if a person has a domestic violence case or a drug case, that really does impact your residency and your citizenship here in this country. So to me, all of these processes are connected, therefore make a better citizen or a better community member. Ultimately, that's what we want out of this process. Tell us about your trips to Canada, because you were telling me that you spent some significant time up there training.
Yes. I've been going to Canada for the last 6 years. And in the last 6 years, we've developed centers in the main province of Canada, which is not the main, but it's in the center of Canada. And it's in Saskatchewan. And in Saskatchewan, I've been going from the very low areas of the south of Canada to all the way to the north, all the way close to the northwestern territories. Well, anyway, what I do out there is I teach the counselors how to work with themselves first, and then how to use that knowledge to work with their own people.
So it's this process with this concept and idea that you have really positively impacts not only the client but also the counselor.
The counselor, it is probably one of the most important parts to begin with, because the counselors have to understand how to work with themselves first. Because even the counselors, you know, so even in the United States, a lot of counselors are wounded. You know, there's some things that counselors are going through themselves that they still don't understand what's going on. With this idea of the 4 elements, they will get to know themselves, and they cannot lie to themselves.
Well, thank you very much for visiting our show. I really appreciate it. I know we're going to get back together several times, but the next time we come back on air, you know, I'm sure we're going to get a few questions, whether it be on Facebook or by phone. Do you feel comfortable being able to answer some of these questions for some of our viewers?
Sure.
Absolutely. I love that answer. How great was that answer? Our friends, don't change the channel, even though this is not a channel, it's our Facebook page, but always stay tuned to our Facebook page. Every single week we have pictures, images, and video. Rogelio, gracias de nuevo. See you next time. See you in a few minutes.